Hello students, this is Benazir Fatima, Assistant Professor, School of Legal Studies, PPT University. Today I'll be taking the lecture on utility theory, that is cardinal and ordinal approach. Now let's proceed with the slides. The index contains definition of utility, then the types of utility which contains total utility, average utility and marginal utility. And then we have the two approaches of utility, that is cardinal utility and ordinal utility. Now moving on to the definition of utility. Utility is the want satisfying power contained in a good. It is basically the want satisfying power of a commodity, and it is basically that feeling which makes you feel satisfied after consuming anything in particular, anything that you consume, which makes you feel happy, which makes you feel full, which makes you feel contented, satisfied. That is the feeling which is termed as utility. Now in economics, the term utility is used to denote the satisfaction or the welfare. Now, it is the good that has got this feeling imbibed, which says that utility derived from a good are of different forms, such as form utility. Anything which has certain form has a utility to someone. Then place utility. Any place can be of different utilities, can be of different importance to different people. Time utility, people have different time utilities. Every time has different utility for different people. And then the service utility. Services can be, there's so many services which are different, which gives different amount of satisfaction to different type of people. So all these things which gives satisfaction, be it a form, be it place, be it time, be it services, be it consumption, anything which makes you feel satisfied is your utility, is the utility. Now, as I talked about earlier in the index, we have types of utility. First is total utility. Now, supposingly you are you consumed an apple, and the entire apple once finished makes you feel fully satisfied, fulfills your hunger. It makes you fully happy, and that is the last. That is the feeling that you get by the consumption of consuming each unit of the apple. That is your total utility once you finish the entire apple. So the total utility means the total satisfaction attained by the consumer from all the units of a commodity taken together in a consumption of a certain thing at a particular period of time. Next is the average utility. Average utility is obtained by consumer per unit of commodity consumed. It is calculated by dividing the total utility by the number of units consumed. Basically, it is the total amount of utility which is divided by per unit of a commodity, and the figure that you get after the division is your average utility. Now the next is marginal utility. Marginal utility has got a very long, got a very deep importance in microeconomics, in study of while studying various phenomena, various laws, various activities. It will be of quite importance when you will study law of equi-marginal utility, and you will study law of diminishing marginal utility, where we study the nature of utility and certain things like that, which is basically based on this concept, marginal utility. So it is the additional utility obtained from an additional unit of any commodity consumed or acquired. So it is the one by one addition of the unit to your consumption, which gives you one by one satisfaction, and which can be calculated differently per unit during the process of consumption. It is measured It measures the difference between the utility of a total units of stock of consumption of a given commodity and that of consuming 1 unit less in the stock considered. That means whatever amount the next, it is the additional satisfaction that you get after consuming the commodity, and each step goes on decreasing your utility is on it gets on making you more satisfied, and your satisfaction level goes on decreasing, and the last bite, and on the last bite you feel totally satisfied, you feel totally full by that time. So that is the marginal utility. Next is approaches of utility, where we have two approaches, that is cardinal utility and ordinal utility. Basically, cardinal utility is the way of measuring the satisfaction in terms of numbers. It was earlier assumed by classical economists that they can measure the utility, the satisfaction which is arrived by, which is experienced by any individual in terms of numbers. Whereas in modern eras, the modern economists quoted that it is a satisfaction, it is a feeling which cannot be put into numbers, but it can be evaluated in terms of preferences and not in terms of numbers. The next point, cardinal utility, says that it uses quantitative approach during the analysis of degree of satisfaction. As based on numbers, obviously it is the quantitative approach, whereas as based on the as based on the preferences, it is based on the qualitative method. Then in the third point says consumers in cardinal utility makes measurements of degree of satisfaction derived after consuming products in utils, that is the imaginary unit. And consumers in ordinal utility rank their preferences according to the derived satisfactions after their consumption. The next point says marginal utility analysis used for explanation of cardinal utility. So we have the analysis of marginal utility, which is useful for explaining the approaches of how to measure the utility in terms of numbers. Whereas on the other hand, on the ordinal, we have indifference curve analysis, which are the curves which are based on preferences and that are used for the explanation of the ordinal utility theory. The next is cardinal utility measurement promoted by the traditional economists. They used to consider that the utility is something which can be measured in terms of numbers, whereas this was totally criticized by the modern economists, and they said that under ordinal utility measurements are promoted by modern economists. That is the usage of indifference curve. So we have studied as what is the utility definition. It is the one satisfying power of a commodity. It is a feeling which is imbibed in the person, which differs from place to place, from time to time, from people to people. We have utility in various forms, place, and we have services, time. Then we studied three types of utilities, that is total utility, which is derived after total consumption. We have average, which is derived after dividing the total consumption by the per unit consumption. And then we have the marginal, which is the additional utility satisfaction which you get after consumption. Now after these three types we have the two approaches, that is cardinal utility, which is studied by the traditional economists, which said that consumers basically the cardinal utility is it can be put in numbers, and people can measure their satisfaction in terms of numbers, whereas it was criticized by the modern economists. They said that it cannot be put in numbers because it is a satisfaction, a feeling which is not possible to be evaluated in terms of numbers. So they gave existence to indifference curve analysis, which was later on used for the explanation of the satisfaction or the utility under the ordinal utility approach. So this was all from my side. Thank you so much.